This is the Real Wealth Podcast, where we explore all things wealth related. Join us on this wealth journey. Let's get into it. I'm joined by Mr. Laurie Duncan. I couldn't start a podcast without first doing an episode with my business partner. Probably one of the people I know better than anyone in the world, so it should be a really good chat. The first thing I'd say is you are probably one of the most driven, extreme, fucking mental people that I know in my life. Just your massive drive for more and wealth creation, it is inspiring and has been inspiring to me. So where does that come from?
Who knows, man? Who knows? Pros and cons, right? I mean, it's not always a positive thing, you know? But ultimately, yeah, I guess my old man was in business. You know, he built up a successful company. He was always kind of business minded, I guess. Certainly, like when I was born, anyway, because I'm the youngest of 5 boys, right? So it's funny, my older brothers aren't so kind of businessy, I would say, as like I am. But
so a little bit of look at me, I'm the youngest.
Just to prove that I can, overachieve. You know, I've always had this thing inside me where it's like, a big drive to achieve massive goals. I don't kind of like average. I never have been. Like, I don't want to be average, you know. I don't understand why people want to be average. Like, I want to be, I just want to achieve, like, you're only here for a really short time in this thing called life, unless you believe in reincarnation. And I just want to make sure I make the most of it, you know, and I guess that's where that drive comes from.
I think for me, with our backgrounds, you know, we growing up, we both went to the same school together, had the same kind of group of friends, and you're not really exposed much to entrepreneurship or anything. You know, the obvious path for us was get a job, you know, to try and work your way up the corporate ladder. It wasn't something that we were exposed to. I couldn't say that I knew a single entrepreneur growing up. Yeah. Did you said your dad was an entrepreneur, had his own business. Is that something that he imparted onto you? You know, you say your brothers aren't involved in it. Did it come from your dad, or was it something else that brought it in?
I don't know. I mean, thinking back, like, you know, I like flopped out of school, right? I mean, I didn't do anything from school really. Just I went to do a college thing, and then it was an HND in multimedia design and technology. Then after that, I just kind of dossed about. Done that for 2 years. Was meant to go to uni, hated uni, left after 6 weeks. Went and done the call centre circuit, and then ultimately I just ended up in an office job, you know. And if it wasn't for it was my dad that took me on in his company, like, you know, and if it wasn't for that, it's quite interesting to me. Like, I wonder if I would still kind of feel the same about business. Like, I was exposed to a lot in that role, you know, started off making the teas, and then it was like, you know, doing the faxes and all that. And then it turned into a sales role. And I think the sales role, like, it kind of taught me a lot about business. Like, it taught me a lot about what you could really achieve. You know, that some of the numbers, like, I wasn't involved initially anyway, wasn't involved in like, you know, accounts and the other aspects of business. But over a period of time, probably like 10 years, I was working in that business, and I learned so much, you know, and it actually kind of drove me apart from the business though, because when I saw what you could achieve, because the longer that kind of time period went on, the more I was learning, the more I could see, like, wow, what I could achieve if I was doing this for myself. And I think that's a difficult thing for a salesperson, really, because you start seeing all the numbers, you start seeing the profit. Now, you don't for a second think about, like, you look at the experience we've got now and doing what we're doing. You know, we've been in business for over 3 years now. I don't know where you can learn that until you just go into business yourself. Because I was looking at just the numbers, thinking like, oh, that excites me, that's class, you know, I want to go and achieve all this profitability for myself. But I did not truly understand every other aspect of the business, you know. And I think it was probably that sales role that made me realise how much you could achieve in terms of the numbers, that kind of pushed me away from that job, that day job, into wanting to go and start up my own business, you know.
When you went into that job, was it predetermined that you were going to go into sales, or it was a natural gravitation, you're a natural sales guy? And
maybe you know, like I started there really after I came back from being in Ibiza in 2005 for the summer, you know, and over the course of that summer, I was actually the top sales guy. Or I say sales guy, I mean, you handed out tickets and you had to get folk to go through the door with your ticket, you know, and that was the job really for promoting these Carol Cox events. And but every week I was the top performer, you know. And so I think after that I came back, and then my dad said, well, why do you not go into this sales role? And you know, then as that developed, I was another, you know, top performer in that company.
It's quite a rare situation because most people don't get that opportunity to kind of naturally gravitate to what they're good at. You know, you're forced at school to kind of make a choice. What are you going to learn?
Yeah.
And then that determines your career. And you can find you're in a situation where you have skills that lie out with where you end up.
Yeah.
But through naturally, you were able to kind of say, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and make a success of it.
But I never used, you know, it's not like I grew up thinking that, or I never like, you know, I did multimedia at college. You know, I guess there was a degree through the call center stuff, you know, there was incentives to generate more revenue for the business, and that's what maybe gave me my first insight. But then I guess I was always just then attracted by the numbers, and I followed that path, and ultimately, yeah, I was a very successful salesperson in my previous life, you know, and now we just you know, try our best to implement that in the property world. So
absolutely. I talked in the first episode about my wealth journey.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of catalyst for me where, you know, kind of built up a successful corporate career, but wanted more. You get into your early 30s, you want to settle down, have kids. The whole traveling thing doesn't really work out for you in the long term when you start to have kids, and that led onto a sort of journey of understanding how I can create something for myself. And the interesting thing is you and I both came to that point at the same time, and that's kind of where Rood Group came from and the fact that we moved forward. But what was the catalyst for you to get to that point in time where we both started?
Ultimately, yeah, it was similar to you. Like after I worked in the UK for like that kind of 10-year period, after that there was probably something like 3 to 5 years where I was working across Scandinavia and Eastern Europe and all that. It was an international sales role, and before I took that job on, I was really excited by it. I couldn't wait to get in it, but then very quickly I just realised how much, like, one, I hate being away, and two, how much I love my house. You know, I never really like valued, I guess, my time at home until I was away so much. And it was during that time that I realised that I wasn't going to do this the rest of my life. I just wasn't. I remember vividly this one point. I was, you know, I arrived at Edinburgh Airport. I waited to get 2 flights to go wherever I was going, you know. And it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was just a queue of guys in suits, shirts and ties, you know. And they were all like, obviously business guys that were going wherever they were going to try and do some business. But they were fucking massive. They were huge, and it was like, they obviously...
Shirts hanging over the belt.
and the bellies hanging over and I was like, fuck me. I was looking at these guys thinking, I'm in this same queue here, man. I'm walking away to get on these planes like these guys are, and I was like, because the job...
It's like a forecast of the future.
Totally. That's what I took from it. It was a real eye-opening moment, because all I was doing was like taking guys out for dinner, drinking loads of beer, eating loads of meals out, and like never able to exercise. When can you do that when all you do is like travel back and forward, eat and drink? I mean, and so at that point I was like, wow, is this what I'm going to end up like? And so that was probably the catalyst to say, fucking hell, Laurie, like, go and do something. You can't do this the rest of your life. And you've always wanted to do something yourself. You want to get away from this kind of corporate vibe that you're in. And ultimately, I really just wanted a bit more kind of freedom. You know, I didn't want to be like just... I don't know, under someone else's control or whatever. I wanted to kind of create a life for myself. So yeah, I think the combination of traveling and these experiences of seeing other guys that have obviously done that their whole lives and they're still doing it when they're like 60. I just decided that it was never going to be me, you know. No.
So what was the transition point? How did you get from that place to ultimately establishing Rood and where we are right now?
Wow, I mean, it's so funny to think back now. It's so funny and cool and whatever else. So many different like emotions like run through my head when I think about where we are now to that point. Property was always just interesting for me. You know, I had these 3 buy-to-lets. Everybody's probably heard that story of, you know, like I bought one, then a few years later I bought another one and whatever. And I guess I ended up doing well out of them over that kind of 10-year period. When I sold them, I made a bit of cash. And I think I just saw an opportunity, I think, to, if I applied myself a bit more seriously to property investment, I was more strategic with my approach. I saw an opportunity to create a lot of passive income. And at the time, that was the objective, right? It was like build a buy-to-let portfolio, create passive income, don't need to work anymore. And that's kind of what I was going after. And it's just bizarre, really, like the fact that we were both kind of starting to think the same way at the same time.
Yep.
And it was through these conversations that, ultimately led us to where we are now. But I often wonder as well, I wonder if we weren't having these conversations, where either of us would be right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's like we ended up starting Road Group, but that was about 2019, something like that. And I'm talking here probably 2017, 18, and we were sharing these ideas. It was clause 24. It was a pain in the arse. There was no lenders in Scotland. Like, where do we find the deals? Like all that kind of stuff.
Even I remember one of the discussions we were having was around what type of properties to buy, because I had this 4-bed house that I was renting out, and I was probably barely breaking even and after tax losing money, but I thought it was a good investment because my mortgage would be paid off 25 years later and I'd have a free house. That seemed like a good investment to me at the time. But we were talking back, and I think it was our buy-to-let agent at the time just mentioned, like, why are you buying this expensive shit when 60 grand property, you're going to be renting out 500-600 quid a month, yields phenomenal. And it was, again, there's just so many things on this wealth journey where people state the fucking obvious, but if you're not doing it, it's not obvious. And it just changed the way we thought, and we both started looking completely differently at property investment at that point.
I think, like, similarly in that point, I never had ambition, I guess, to go after the kind of low value, high yielding stuff. Never. And it was right at the start of that journey. I think we probably both changed our tune on that a little bit, I mean, if you take like a simple, very simplistic setup, you buy something for 50 grand, you put in like 15 grand of like cash into it, then after a few years, you've got your money back anyway through it. Like, I mean, before even really doing anything too kind of strategic, too fancy. And so that was an eye-opener. I really looking at the different types of properties, and we've done videos about that and examples about this kind of stuff, house versus terrace versus flat, and multiple reasons why we go after that type of stock now. And I mean, you look at the total portfolio just now, like the average value is maybe 55 to 60k, something like that, which is very low value, like generally, but for most people, their homes maybe, I don't know, a couple of $100,000 or more, something like that, so it's very different type of stock, I guess, to what I ever imagined us getting into. But when you know and understand it, and you know how to apply the strategy, can make a really
I think
good
so many
success
people
of it,
think at that level you're just dealing with bad tenants and the place is getting wrecked and arrears and all that sort of stuff, and the reality isn't that. There's ways to manage it, and you can still get some really good tenants in these types of properties. So I mean, that was an eye-opener for us. But is there any, throughout those initial years where you were searching for this new strategy and we were discussing property, is there any books or anything that you read that changed your game? I talked in the first episode about Rich Dad Poor Dad and the massive impact that's had on us, but is there anything else that you kind of think, right, that was the game changer for me?
Chimp Paradox. To teach me about myself, and humans generally, the way we act and deal with things and how we can better deal with things, I honestly think that was as great as Rich Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad was definitely the number one book in terms of like strategy, principle, and all that. But then that's cool. That's like one aspect of it. But as we continually, we go on and on and on about this, in order to proceed successfully, you have to get your head right. You have to get your head right. It has to be the number one thing that's right. Now, that was like the first kind of mindset-y type book I think I listened to, and I don't read. I've never enjoyed reading, but I do like listening.
It's funny for you to think of, for me to think of you at the start of a mindset journey, because you're our mindset guy in the office. You are Rude's mindset coach. So it's even funny to hear that only started as recently as kind of Rude.
But you say that, and I get it. I'm that guy, like as part of the group. But it's like and some I'm genuinely generally quite a kind of like positive, upbeat kind of guy, and but it's not like I have some fucking superpower or whatever. Folk look at me and be like, oh, he's so positive, he's so upbeat and all that. But fucking hell, I have as many downs as everybody else out there, like, and that's why I like that type of stuff, because I feel like it keeps me on the straight and narrow. Like I do the morning routine with the stretching, breathing, meditation, the cold showers, all that shit. I feel like I need to. Because I think like when the further up this kind of business ladder you go, the pressures come at you for like all different angles.
I mean, you kind of skip quite past those hacks quite quickly there, but let's talk about them, because I think that's what people get benefit from, is understanding what are the hacks to control your mindset, because any wealth journey is going to start from a point of you have a goal. There's going to be a lot of hurdles in the way, a lot of challenges, a lot of mental barriers to get over. There's going to be people holding you back around you, your circle. People get uncomfortable when other people start to stretch themselves and put themselves out there. How do you manage all that, and what daily habits can help?
I remember like right at the start of the journey, and it might even have been before we started the road group, and like we were both at home and never had an office or whatever. We were just like working from home, and it was probably during COVID and stuff like that. And I remember quite often, and maybe like once a week, certainly once every couple of weeks, I would just go out and lie on the floor at the hall, right? And Emma would maybe come out and like be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like lying on the floor, And I would just be lying face down and just taking a moment, closing my eyes, because my mind was going fucking wild. And I refer to it as monkey mind, and I don't know if anyone can relate to this, any listeners can relate, but I mean, I just used to get so minced in my head that I had to just go and lie down and close my eyes and like try and that was really the start of the meditation stuff for me. I'd never really tried meditation before. Now I do it on a daily basis, and I feel like it fuels me to keep doing more. And honestly, I don't know how folk can't, like back to my dad again and his business journey, like he'd never done anything like this, like he never, and I don't know how people can like, I don't know, keep going along that journey without applying these techniques. But that's really where I became very aware of the pressure I was experiencing, and I had to try and kind of find a way to deal with it somehow. And I didn't know what that was, and I tried different things like hypnotherapy, brain work and recursive therapy, the meditation stuff, the breathing thing. I mean, man, so my routine, just to explain for all the listeners, in the morning, I do a 20-minute stretching routine. And as I'm stretching, and check out this thing called pliability, right? It was previously called ROMWOD. It's fucking hard. Like, you're in these poses for long periods of time, and it's almost like pain, right? But it's not quite pain. It's just like a feeling of discomfort. But I mean, it's properly discomforting, right? And, I don't know how, so in these routines, the guy teaches you to breathe through it, and again, that's how I kind of got into the breathing thing as well. Because I didn't know about it. Now I know all these different types of breathing kind of routines you can do. But when you're in these poses, you're really stretching your body in directions it's never been stretched before. How the fuck can you stay in that position if you've not got something to kind of help you get to the end point? And it could be like 5 minutes, 6 minutes sometimes in this really weird, uncomfortable pose. Now, the cool thing is the body completely stretches out, and if you were to do like a time lapse on it, you would see it. But at the time, it doesn't feel like that. At the time, you're just like really struggling to take your mind off this experience of discomfort. But by focusing on the breath, breathe in for 10, hold for 10, out for 10, hold out for 10 again, that type of thing. You take the focus away from the kind of pain or discomfort to your breath. And so now, we've talked about the meditation stuff, the stretching, the breathing, cold showers, right? How can you go and have a cold shower without like kind of dancing around and freaking out? Right?
You like to dance? That's okay.
I do like to dance, and sometimes that's how I do it. But I find it like, before I flick the temperature gauge to cold, so start off with a hot shower, wash as normal, and then just flick it so it goes immediately down to cold. I couldn't get in that shower and experience that cold sensation if it wasn't for me focusing on my breath. So I take a big inhale before I get in the water, and then breathe out as my body adjusts to this cold water experience. Then dance around a little bit, and then do some more breathing, because it just takes your mind away from the problem kind of thing. So whether that's a stretching problem, or it's a cold sensation problem, or it's a problem in business, whatever it might be, I find that it really massively helps calm the mind. And for anyone that does it though, it slows your heart rate.
Yeah.
If you've got a Fitbit or whatever, watch your heart rate as you're doing deep breathing. You can massively slow down your heart rate, and it just calms you down. You know?
I think the interesting thing about that is, and that's just the start to your day, but
Aye.
ultimately, quite literally, it's about stretching your comfort zone, right? And
Totally.
and that is all that your wealth journey is about, is stretching your comfort zone. Because the reality is, if you're stuck in a comfort zone, if you're not growing,
Yeah.
you're contracting, you're not achieving anything, you're not moving forward. And these simple hacks in the morning, one, they put you in a better mindset, you're ready to attack the day, but also you're stretching your comfort zone. You have to be doing that in every element of your life to move forward, because if you're just sitting, you know, with these animals where we sit in our houses that are temperature controlled, it's all very comfortable, you go to work, you sit in a very temperature controlled environment, most people do anyway. You order your phone from a piece of glass, and you order your food from a phone on a piece of glass. You know, you don't even have to interact with human beings day in, day out if you don't want to, the way that the world's designed just now. So it's very easy to sit in this little comfort bubble where effectively you just live the same day over and over again, like Groundhog Day, unless you're pushing your boundaries and comforts. I mean, that really is the start of any wealth journey, is just starting to push those comfort zones, whether it be cutting back on your budget, you know, accepting that you're not going to go out for dinner as much, or make some compromises in your life so you can start to build some financial wealth, or whether it's starting to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, starting to have discussions around wealth and finance that you're maybe not comfortable in doing. It's all about stretching yourself.
But it's easy to not stretch your comfort zone, right?
Absolutely.
It's easy to like be average. It's easy to like just not communicate. It's easy to just like, you know, sit and play on your phone all day. You know, it's like it's hard, and there's varying degrees there of difficulty. You know, but it's hard to go after some kind of crazy big goal, you know, whatever it might be. You know, I remember back to my vision board of 2018, you know, one of them was to do 2 refurbs. One of them was to do a traded deal, you know, like it's just so funny looking back, because now obviously, you know, we're trading deals regularly through the training business, you know, we've got our own building company, so we're doing refurbs on a scale that is huge, you know, but we are here now, sitting around this table doing the Real Wealth podcast because of all these other moves. This 4-year period of kind of difficulty, this period of stretching comfort zones has brought us to this new place of business and a new place of life, ultimately.
And that's it. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. You don't have to do a 10k run every morning. You don't have to do your stretching, your breathing, your cold showers. You don't have to do any of this stuff. You could just sit in your bed. Yeah. But the reality is, you take the pain now for the benefit in the long term, or you take the comfort now and expect the pain further down the line when you get towards retirement and you realise that you're woefully underfunded. You're never going to have enough money to see through your retirement. You're going to be working into your 80s. Yeah. You know, these are the decisions that you make now. Stretch it now, take the pain now, and get the benefit further on. Yeah. So that's all really cool. We've talked a lot about that. Let's talk a little bit about property. You are here as our resident property expert. So I'm not going to talk too much about Rood Group, but what I will do in the show notes, I'll put a link to our 0 to 200 where you can, you know, if you want to find out more about our company and Rood Group, you can find out from that video. It explains our wealth journey. But what I do want to ask you is, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start out in property investment?
Number one, get educated. I cannot emphasize that enough. You know, there has to be knowledge around how to implement the strategies that we do, right? Wherever you get that training from, get trained. I would say, you know, just be careful about who you take that advice from, that education from, because there's a lot of people now we see in that training space who maybe lack credibility, shall we say. It was never an issue for me when we started training, when we were doing our own education, because I felt credible. We were credible. We had created a story and all that. And so, yeah, you know, people that come to learn from us, they should, because we are credible educators. But there's a lot of people in that space that maybe aren't. So, you know, just be careful about who you choose to learn from. Yep. But number one, you need to get educated, you know. And I often think think back to, you know, when I bought these 3 properties over that 10-year period of time before we got kind of started. I just wonder how differently we could have done things or whatever, like if we had that knowledge like 10 years before, so definitely need the knowledge. I think it is really important to be working with someone that's further on than you, like, or has a different degree of experience from you, because we were kind of going through the journey at the same time, but we had very different experiences, right? You were like the financial analytical accountant guy, I was like the business development guy, mindset guy and whatever. But they complemented us very well to the point that it was like, we should really start something together here.
I think that's where that understanding of mindset and understanding yourself becomes beneficial, because you understand your own strengths, your own weaknesses. And it's not that you have to learn to do everything in business, Bringing on a partner that has opposite skills and complementary skills to you has been massively supportive for us.
I don't know how, again, if you think like, imagine we didn't join forces, that we didn't start Road Group, and you were doing your thing, I was doing mine. Like, I just don't know how far we would have really gotten. Because you would have just been completely limited by that. So I think it's just the point that, like, whether you're joint venturing with someone or you're working with someone or in some kind of capacity, the value in like sharing ideas, it's just invaluable, So yeah, I think you need to know what you're doing, get the education, know the strategies, go and implement them with someone that will challenge it as well. Because Christ, if everything was up to me, fuck knows where we'd be right now, you like to keep me on my feet, and that's cool. It's essential. But then you see the balance of decision that comes out of the conversation. Yeah. And that's massively valuable.
I think a lot of people, assume that, in close partnerships like ours, there's fallouts, or there's going to be times where there's friction, and I can honestly say in the 4 years we've been working together, there's never been anything like that, because we always manage to talk things out and agree on the best, because we're both looking for the best solution for our business, and that's what it comes down to. So but that's not always the case. It's not always the case for a lot of people, because they pick the wrong partner. And ours happen very organically, I think, is the issue.
And there's but there's plenty of folk that, like, we could have maybe gotten into business with over the years if it wasn't each other. But you hear a lot of kind of horror stories about those kind of setups, and I think it's maybe the case that quite often there's two folk that are very similar that go after, and then it's like, well, the decisions are always based on a very similar
view of life.
Whereas we, I think, we challenge each other, and if somebody's having it, because it's not like we're all sunshine and rainbows every day, you know what I mean? We have our good days, we have our bad days, and all that. But just by talking things through and having these different viewpoints, I think has been a massive contributor for our success.
I'm definitely more the grumpy bastard of the two of us, but sometimes that can be useful. Okay, so what would you say for anybody starting to get out in property? A lot of people think that property investment is for the wealthy, and a lot of people make money in other things and then start investing in property, so they're starting with a decent pot. How do you get started when you don't really have much funds?
Well, Christ, we never had any funds when we got started. I mean, like a lot of people think that you need your own money to get started in property. I mean, we didn't. When you understand finance, how to raise finance, all the different methods that are out there, again, back to the education thing. Like, when you know what you're doing, you can go and achieve great things, and just don't let that be a barrier. Like, don't let your mindset be a barrier. Don't let your background be a barrier. Don't let finance be a barrier. You just need to know how to kind of bring it all together.
What are your top couple of tips then for getting money when you're starting out?
Thinking back to, like, we just found finance through conversation, really. Yeah. It was just like telling people what we were doing. And you find that, when you talk about bricks and mortar and all of that, and then you show people a deal where, like, it's worth 100 grand, we're buying it for 50 grand, like, solid. I mean, the security's sauce. I mean, you've got a security in place, and usually most folk will have when they're getting started. We certainly did. It wasn't difficult to sell, because it was just like, here's the facts. This is the value of the thing. This is what we're going to do with it. Quite a lot of folk have got money sitting in the bank, and when you're getting started, I certainly didn't think, no way, that at the time when we were starting, How many people would have funds sitting in the bank looking for something to do with them because they're earning nothing? And really just, from us being very open and talking about what we were setting out to achieve, the money just kind of came.
I think that's the interesting thing of, that a lot of people who have managed to get at least a base mastery of wealth where they can put a bit of savings behind, they don't have a clue what to do with the money. And when you're sitting in a situation just now where inflation is officially 10% plus and in reality probably much higher, that money is losing value every single day. If you're not investing for a return, your money is worth less every single day. So that there's a level of urgency around figuring out how you're going to invest it, understanding what strategy you're going to use to invest your money. So don't be, I guess, don't underestimate the amount of people that are sitting with money and do not have a clue what to do with it. And as you say, property investment is such a safe way to invest, especially when you do use a lot of strategies like we do, like below market value, where you're buying cheaper. You give them a first charge security against the property. They can fund the entire thing. And they've still got equity left over there. So if it all goes pear-shaped, they take the property, get the money back. Very simple way to get people on board in investment. And if you can demonstrate your credibility because you've educated yourself, then you're off to the races. And it is literally as simple as that. That's how we got started. That's how we grew it. And that's why we are.
A lot of folk get concerned about that kind of credibility. Why is anyone going to give me their money? Well, it was exactly the same for when we got started. But I think we found that through working with Mr. Connor Tracy, the quality of the deals that we were saying, like, we're going to buy this, here's the facts, here's the numbers. The deal brings credibility and it attracts investment. So I think these two things combined, one, us talking about things, and two, the quality of the deals that we were presenting. I think, those things joined together made it a very safe, attractive investment for people with cash in the bank.
So for anyone who's starting out in property, what would you say are the key mistakes that people make?
Getting the right team in place, I think, is fundamental. We made a lot of mistakes with our refurbs when we were getting started, overspending, not controlling it. Never really had a clue, to be fair. We've learned a lot about that through having the building company now, I'd say, about different costs and the rates that people pay and all that jazz. But when we were getting started, we didn't have like kind of fixed price scopes and whatever. It was just, I need this property refurbed. It'll take as long as it'll take and the bill will be what it'll be, I remember the Hague Street property in particular, I think we'd maybe went in and said finger in the wind, like 20 grand of our refurb budget or whatever the number was, and it ended up being 35 grand. Because of the quality of that deal, it didn't kill us, but it could have been like a 15 grand cost left in. Now we ended up getting all our money back anyway, and a bit of profit on that one. So it was good in the end. But because we never had the right team, and we probably never had the right attitude, I would say, towards it, that could have slipped us up, I think I mentioned having the right team in place, and you look at our team now compared to our team when we got started, and it's so different for so many reasons. I don't know how many lawyers we went through. We're on our second agent. We went for a big agent now because we started off with a one-man band and it wasn't working because we were scaling more than he was kind of going to scale. We've dealt with some lawyers in the past that they were just local lawyers, so that's just who we went to use, and now we're using much bigger firms for the different things that we're doing. The building company is obviously our refurb team, and the lenders we're working with are just like chalk and cheese, So all these different things that we have in place now, we've only kind of got to that point because of the experience we went through. I think it's just important to realise that as cool as property can be and as passive as it can be, I think maybe in the initial stages we were maybe a bit too like just expecting things to happen rather than having our finger on the pulse a bit more and being a bit more like on site every day or whatever. I don't know, like
in the detail.
I think we were always really interested in the numerical analysis, and it's always about the numbers for us, right? It's like, does the deal stack, yes or no? We don't care if it's a little shite or wherever it might be. Do the numbers stack, and then we'll do the deal. Even now, we're starting to go out and get our finger on the pulse a bit more and go and visit the properties, and we've got Tembo doing some video footage for us and all that. It's exciting. It's like you're kind of going back, and it's just to get more kind of hands-on, touchy-feely experience of all these property deals we're doing, because for the last year anyway, It was really just like, oh, we're in the office, we're doing deals, but we're not out there, you know. And even this, the Real Wealth podcast, you know, it's about kind of getting us out there a bit more. And I guess, you know, mistakes, you're always going to make them. It's not like I regret any of these things I'm talking about, any of these experiences that we had, because we just couldn't be here now, I don't think, if it wasn't for going through that process. So whilst you want to minimise your mistakes, just accept it's part of the ride, man, you know. Because
I think through mentorship you can probably mitigate some of the more obvious mistakes, but you know, when you talk about a lot of those mistakes, you're really talking about the kind of setup, systemization. I mean, when we talk about property investment, we talk about the 4 key pillars. So you've got your foundations, where you decide how you're going to structure your business. You know, with Section 24, you want to be in a company, things like that. You get the fundamental foundations of your business right. Then you systemize as much as possible. You get the right power teams, you get the right people working for you, so you can make your investment as passive as possible. The right letting agent, the right refurb team, the right handyman, you know, the right lawyers, the right letting agent, you know, all that sort of stuff has to be systemized so you can focus on the key job as a property investor, which is finding deals, finding money, and balancing the two in the constant balancing act. So, you know, that systemization as you grow is going to break because you get too big for it. You need to find new solicitors, power team. You know, it's just the natural way of business. You know,
exactly. And you look at our setup now. Again, it's just so different from when we started out. But we've just learned all these different things. We've had all these frustrations that caused us to take different actions and make things more streamlined, and that, you know, we're just a product of growth, you know.
Do you think it would have mattered to us whether or not we decided to invest in property if we went into some other sort of business? Do you think where we are now is a result of choosing property, or it could have been any other strategy?
Business? Funnily enough, I was having these thoughts recently. I guess just because, you know, we're looking at starting the finance co, and you know, we're really no longer just a property business. You know, we've got all these different things going on, albeit they're all synergistic to property. I would probably say that whatever we went into, we could have made a success of. I think we can apply that, certainly now at the stage we're at in business, the experience we have. I'm pretty confident, like, whatever we decided to go and get into next, we could go and make a success of it because of what we've learned, you know. Property, it's just like, it seemed like the most obvious, natural step to take. And you look at all these other businesses that we have outside of the buy-to-lets, and they've only really been born because of the buy-to-let efforts. So it's actually a really good first move to make, I think, because it allows you to create income to free up your time to focus on other things, whatever that might be. So, I've no doubt we could have made a success of something else. I firmly believe that. But no, I like the fact that we've started in buy-to-lets, and I love the fact now that we're expanding into all these other areas. I think for anyone starting up in business, unless you've got a particular thing, a particular level of experience that you've had a career in or whatever, and it's a natural stepping stone to go into that, you know, I think if you're kind of diversifying, like we both did, you know, you were an accountant for an oil and gas firm, I was like a sales guy for a steel stockholder, you know, and then you jump out that into property. I think if you're not following that same kind of career path, property just seems like such an obvious move to make.
I mean, for me, it was just, you know, it's that logic part of my brain that says the most expensive thing most people buy is a property. So there has to be the most money to be made in that.
100%. Right? I mean, oh man, you look at some of the deals we're doing now. You know, it's just incredible, and this whole synergy of everything coming together. I mean, we've got so many plates spinning now in the group, but when they're all spinning together, it's beautiful to see. You know. Yeah.
That's all really been cool. We've talked a little bit about property. We've talked about your own business journey, some of the mindset challenges along the way. I guess the last question I want to ask, like the last question I'm going to ask on every one of these podcasts, is what does real wealth mean to you? What's the goals? What is the end result here?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this recently as well, and I think ultimately it comes down to freedom. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, I want tons of money, you know, I want tons of cash, I want to do loads of different things, but, you know, for anyone that's not seen my outhouse project, it's full steam ahead now, you know, due to be finished in a month or something. And the guys have just laid the deck at the back now, so I can now walk, you know, for ages it's just been like a building site at the back. The deck's now laid so I can actually open the patio doors, go out onto the deck, and albeit it's not finished, but like, fucking hell, I've got this big house with like this other house in the garden.
And that's the thing, you've got like, cheek to call it an outhouse. It's just another house in the garden.
But that's the point. It's like, I've got this main residence, the outhouse with the secondary kitchen, all these outdoor living areas. The whole garden's been redone. There's a gym, there's a sauna, there's a steam. I mean, fucking hell, that's cool. Yeah. Like that's wealthy for me. I'm really fucking proud of that. Having something like that, like where you live, is really fucking cool. Like if I was to go back and talk to my 18-year-old self, many moons ago now, if I was my 18-year-old self looking at me now to have achieved what I have, that's fucking cool. And that's before we get into like family, kids, money and all that. It's like, it's so cool to have that type of place to live. We were talking recently, I can't remember what the conversation was about, but we were talking about just how much we've transformed our lives, right? And when you go back again, when we were having these early conversations before we started Druid Group, like fucking hell, we have completely transformed our lives. Absolutely. And the biggest thing I would say is the freedom we've created. We can just do what we want when we want, but it's like we're doing so many cool things. Like it's really enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. It's massively challenging, this whole business thing. Like it's not without its downs. Like I mentioned before, there's plenty ups, but there's a lot of challenges that are like just mentally challenging, but we have created a life for ourselves that I just think we should be really fucking proud of, man. The freedom to do what you want when you want, multiple businesses, multiple income streams, all the guys working here now, that's cool. I just love what we've got going on. So real wealth for me, apart from having a big minted gaff and going for a sauna every morning in your own back garden, I think the freedom to just be able to do what you want when you want, that's cool.
Surely there's going to be a bit of Spain in there, maybe a bit of skiing in Aviemore.
This is interesting you bring it up then, right? So we had this cash in the bank from selling off these personal properties that we no longer needed when we got started, right? Talking with Emma about that, what should we do with this? No point in it sitting in the bank, right? We should do something. So we were looking at outhouse in the back garden, we were looking at Aviemore, and we were looking at Spain.
Yep.
And our strategy for moving forward is now, well, if we have this thing in the back garden, we can use it all day, every day without having to travel anywhere. So, okay, right now, it makes sense to use that money for the outhouse project. In another few years, when the kids are a bit older, then we want to go after the Aviemore thing. Aviemore's just a place that I want to have a secondary home. I like the snow, I like skiing, even although I never do it. But I like that environment. And then probably when the kids are a bit, because you still need to get all your stuff in the car and drive up to Aviemore for 2.5 hours. So there's like, logistics involved in that. And then probably when the kids are like kind of 10, 11, something like that, then I want to go after the place in Spain. So that's going to be the different property purchases over the next 10 years. Let's see how it goes. It'll be cool to look back.
Well, I mean, I'm personally hoping that you hit all those targets, because if you're hitting them, it means I'm hitting them as well.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely.
That's an ideal synergy.
Your gaff in Marbella will be bigger than mine.
Well,
you've put all your money into the one thing.
It's not a dick contest. We'll be all right. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining me, Mr. Laurie Duncan. If I can't get my own business partner to join this, then I'm in trouble.
Exactly.
So that's been the Real Wealth Podcast. I'm Alex Robertson. Thanks for listening, and I hope you join us on this wealth journey.